The storm howled outside the castle walls the night Selene was born. Thunder split the heavens, and the midwives whispered that no good ever came from a child who entered the world beneath a blood-red moon. Her mother, Queen Ilara, cradled her infant daughter with trembling hands. "She will be the light of this kingdom," she whispered weakly before death stole her final breath. But light did not reign in the castle for long. Within months, the king remarried a woman with hair as dark as raven's wings and eyes sharp as polished glass. Lady Morwen, the new queen, smiled sweetly to the world, but inside her chest beat a heart consumed with envy. As Selene grew, Morwen's hatred festered, for the child's innocent laughter reminded her of the late queen, and the king's gaze softened only for his daughter. One night, when Selene was barely 7, Morwen lured her into the Forbidden Tower. Candles burned low, filling the chamber with shadows. Selene clutched her doll, wide-eyed with fear. "Do you know why no one can truly love you, little dove?" Morwen cooed, her smile stretching too wide. Selene shook her head. "Because beauty is a lie, and lies must be punished." Morwen's hand shot out, pressing a dagger's edge to Selene's palm. Blood welled, crimson against pale skin. With her other hand, Morwen traced runes into the air, whispering words that tasted of ash. The curse burned into Selene's flesh, searing her bones with fire. She screamed, but no one came. When the spell ended, Morwen crouched beside her, stroking her hair. "Now the world will see you as beautiful," she whispered. "But beneath the mask, you will always be what you truly are, ugly, scarred, and unworthy of love. And should the curse ever break, remember this: no one will stay." From that night on, Selene lived with a mirror that lied. Selene sat at the high table, a golden goblet poised in her slender fingers, her every gesture watched by hungry eyes. Her beauty was the kind poets spilled ink to describe: hair like spun silver, skin smooth as ivory, eyes bright as polished sapphires. Men tripped over themselves to catch her smile. Women whispered envy into their cups. But Selene knew the truth. Behind the illusion, her skin was marred with scars raised, jagged, cruel gifts from a curse that never faded. Every compliment curdled in her stomach. Every suitor's sigh felt like mockery. She forced her lips into a polite smile as Lord Heron bowed low before her. "Your radiance blinds us all, my lady. Surely the gods themselves weep in envy." Selene inclined her head, her voice soft and measured. "You flatter too easily, my lord." Across the hall, on a throne carved of obsidian, sat Queen Morwen. Her stepmother's lips curved in satisfaction, but her eyes glittered with venom. Selene had learned long ago that every banquet, every gown, every public display of perfection was Morwen's way of tightening the chains. And tonight, the chains were closing tighter. Trumpets blared. The great doors opened. The hall fell silent as a man strode inside, his presence swallowing the room like a storm cloud. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his dark cloak lined with wolf fur. A scar cut across his jaw, and his eyes piercing gold swept the court like a predator measuring prey. Whispers rippled through the nobles. "The Alpha King, Kael Draven, the Beast of Blackthorn." Selene's goblet trembled in her hand. She had heard stories of villages burned, of enemies gutted, of a man who knelt to no one. He did not bow as he reached the dais. Instead, his gaze locked on her. For a moment, Selene's breath caught in her throat. Unlike others, his stare didn't soften, didn't linger in admiration. It was sharp, dissecting, as though he saw not the mask, but the shadows beneath. Then his lips curved not in kindness, but in claim. "I came for a queen," Kael's voice rumbled, low and dangerous. His golden eyes never left Selene. "And I choose her." Silence. The word hung in the air like a blade, sharp and final. "I choose her." Selene's goblet slipped from her fingers, crashing against the marble floor. Wine spilled like blood, staining her gown. Gasps swept through the hall as eyes darted between the cursed princess and the Alpha King who had just declared his intent. Her stepmother rose slowly, every movement dripping with calculated grace. "Your Majesty," Morwen said, her voice smooth as honey. "You honor us with your presence. But surely you jest. My stepdaughter is unworthy of such an offer." Selene's stomach twisted. Unworthy. The word sank into her bones, the same poison Morwen had fed her since childhood. Kael's gaze slid to the queen, and the temperature in the hall seemed to drop. "I do not jest." His voice carried the weight of command, silencing the room. Your court has whispered of her beauty for years. A beauty worthy of a throne. I came for strength, not for weak smiles. His eyes flicked back to Celine. And she will be mine. Celine forced herself to stand, her knees trembling beneath her gown. You presume much, your majesty. Her voice was soft, yet steady enough to carry. A queen is not claimed like a hound in the market. The nobles gasped at her defiance. Morwen's eyes flashed with warning, but Kale only smirked. Spirited, he said, studying her as though she were prey that had bared its teeth. Good. I tire of meek women. Celine's chest tightened. She wanted to scream that his gaze was wrong, that what he saw was a lie, that if he knew the truth of what lay beneath, he would recoil in disgust. But her stepmother moved quickly, too quickly. It would be our greatest honor, Morwen purred, bowing her head. The bond between your kingdom and ours would be unbreakable. Celine whipped her head toward her, horror rising in her throat. Stepmother, you cannot... Enough, Morwen snapped, her smile never faltering though her nails dug into Celine's arm. You will obey. You will make your father proud. Kale's expression didn't change, but his gaze lingered on the way Celine flinched beneath Morwen's touch. His voice dropped, quieter but more dangerous. Do not mistake this for a request. I do not ask. I take. The court erupted in whispers, fear-laced murmurs echoing off the stone walls. Celine's pulse thundered in her ears. Trapped. She was trapped. Her stepmother's curse wrapping tighter around her throat, and now this man, the beast of Blackthorn, had cast his shadow over her future. But when Kale extended his hand to her, not in gentleness, but in command, Celine did not bow. Instead, she lifted her chin, sapphire eyes meeting molten gold. If you think I will go quietly, Alpha, she whispered, voice trembling but unyielding, then you know nothing of me. Kale's lips curved, a predator's smile. Then I look forward to learning. The announcement came at dawn. Messengers swept through the city, their voices echoing in the narrow streets, declaring the words Celine could barely force herself to believe. Is greater than, by decree of Queen Morwen, Princess Celine of Ashbourne is betrothed to Kale Draven, Alpha King of Blackthorn. The union shall bind the two kingdoms in unbreakable strength. Cheers rose from some merchants dreaming of trade, soldiers murmuring of power, but in the castle halls, whispers brewed like storm clouds. The beast will devour her. She won't last a month in his den. Perhaps it is better she has always been too perfect. No woman can truly be that flawless. Celine heard it all as she walked the corridors, her slippers brushing against cold stone. Every smile aimed at her felt sharper than a blade. Behind their admiration, suspicion festered. They had begun to sense the cracks in her illusion. In her chambers, she tore the jewels from her hair and slammed the mirror shut. Her reflection mocked her the curse, showing the face of a goddess when she longed only to see the truth. The real her, the scarred her, the unlovable her. Running from your reflection? The deep voice rolled through the room like distant thunder. Celine whirled, her heart lurching. Kale leaned casually against the doorframe, arms folded across his broad chest, golden eyes fixed on her as though she were prey caught in the open. You should not be here, she snapped, though her voice faltered. These are my private chambers. Kale pushed off the door and strode inside without hesitation. I do not wait for permission. Celine backed away until her spine hit the edge of her writing desk. Do you make a habit of invading women's rooms? A smirk tugged at his scarred lips. Only the ones who are mine. Heat flared in her cheeks, fury and shame tangling in her chest. I am not yours. My stepmother may sign decrees, but I did not agree to this. Kael's expression darkened, the faintest shadow of irritation crossing his face. Yet instead of anger, he leaned closer, his voice low, a growl meant only for her. Then say no. Celine blinked. What? His gaze burned into hers. Say no. Refuse me. In front of them all. I want to see if your stepmother allows it. I want to see if your court dares deny me. The words lodged in her throat. He wasn't mocking her. He was testing her. Watching. Waiting. You are ruthless, she whispered. I am honest, he corrected. Your people see a jewel, polished and perfect. But he tilted his head, his golden eyes narrowing. I see cracks, and I want to know what you're hiding, Celine. Her breath caught. Does he see through the curse? Before she could speak, Kale straightened, his voice loud enough to fill the chamber. "Prepare yourself. The betrothal feast is tonight. Wear your finest mask." His smirk returned, cruel and knowing. "Though I wonder if you need one." Then he was gone, leaving her chest tight and her hands trembling, the echo of his words gnawing at her bones. The great hall blazed with light that night. Hundreds of candles glittered in golden chandeliers, spilling fire across polished marble floors. Musicians played lively tunes, though their notes felt sharp and false, as though even the music feared the beast who sat at the high table. Kyle? He sat with the ease of a predator at rest, one hand wrapped around a goblet of wine, his golden eyes sweeping the room as though he owned every soul within it. Celine sat at his side, her gown of crimson silk chosen by Morwen herself, designed to make her look like a prize won in battle. But inside, Celine felt only the bite of chains. Hours earlier, in her chambers, Morwen had fastened the necklace around her throat, a choker of black pearls that gleamed like oil in the light. "Smile, child," she had whispered, her grip bruising against Celine's neck. "Do not shame me." Tonight, the Alpha King binds himself to us. One wrong word, one misplaced look, and you will wish you were never born. Celine had not answered. She had simply stared into her stepmother's cold eyes and thought, "I already do." Now, as goblets clinked and nobles cheered, Celine kept her face serene, though her hands trembled in her lap. She felt Kale's gaze on her more than once, sharp as claws raking across her skin. He did not speak much, but when he did, his voice carried over the hall like iron. "Your wine is weak," he told the steward bluntly. "Do your vineyards rot, or do your lords drink like children?" The nobles bristled, but no one dared answer. Morwen laughed lightly, smoothing the insult with false charm. Celine lowered her gaze, praying she would pass unnoticed. But prayers were useless. "Stand!" Kale commanded suddenly, his voice rumbling beside her. Her heart stuttered. Slowly, she rose, crimson skirts whispering against the floor. Kale pushed back his chair, towering beside her. He raised his goblet high, and the hall fell into silence. "To my future queen," he declared, golden eyes gleaming. "May she stand as fierce as her beauty, and may none who cross her live to speak of it." The hall erupted in forced cheers, but Celine's blood ran cold. She knew a threat when she heard one, and that had not been a toast. It had been a warning. When she sat again, Kale leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "Do you always let your stepmother speak for you, Celine? Or will you bare your teeth one day?" Her fingers clenched around her goblet. She wanted to snap back, to defy him. But under Morwen's watchful eyes, the curse pressed against her like a cage. "Instead," she whispered, low enough only for him to hear, "better a caged bird than one hunted by wolves." Kale's lips curved in a dangerous smile. "Then perhaps I'll break your cage." The feast continued, but Celine could not eat, could not breathe, for she realized something far worse than being trapped by Morwen's curse. The Alpha King might just be the only man ruthless enough to shatter it. The feast raged long into the night, but Celine slipped away as soon as she could. She needed air. The weight of Kale's presence, her stepmother's watchful eyes, and the suffocating lies of her curse pressed down until she thought she might shatter. The corridors beyond the banquet hall were dark, lit only by flickering torches. She pressed a hand against the cold stone wall, her chest heaving. The scent of wine and smoke clung to her gown, but beneath it, she swore she smelled something sharper, iron and blood. Footsteps echoed. Celine froze, retreating into the shadows of an alcove. Two men rounded the corner, their voices low but urgent. She recognized them, knights of Ashbourne, sworn to her stepmother. "Tonight," one whispered. "While he sleeps, the Alpha's head will roll before dawn." Celine's breath caught. "If we strike now," the other hissed, "the court will believe it was an assassin from his own land. The queen will wash her hands clean, and Ashbourne will remain free of his claws." A sick wave of dread rolled through her stomach. Morwen. This was her doing. Celine's nails dug into her palms. She should run, pretend she heard nothing. Kale was ruthless, terrifying, a man who claimed her like property. Perhaps it would be better if someone ended him tonight. Perhaps the curse would die with him. But another thought pierced her. If he dies under this roof, in this kingdom, Morwen wins, and I will never escape her. The knights moved past, their shadows long against the stone, heading toward the guest wing where Kale had been housed. Before she could think, Celine followed. The corridors grew colder, emptier. Her heart hammered in her chest, every step louder than the last. She turned the final corner and nearly screamed. Kale stood in the darkness, waiting. His golden eyes gleamed like a predator's, fixed on her. "You," he growled softly, stepping closer. "Why are you here?" Celine opened her mouth, but before words could form, steel hissed from the shadows. The knights lunged. Kale moved like a storm unleashed. One blade he caught with his bare hand, twisting until the knight screamed. The other he struck down with brutal force, his dagger flashing red in the torchlight. The clash of steel rang through the corridor, mingled with the choking gasps of men who realized too late they had hunted a wolf. Celine pressed herself against the wall, horror and awe flooding her veins. Kale was merciless, every strike efficient, every movement drenched in power. Within moments, both knights lay writhing on the ground, defeated. Breathing hard, Kale turned to her, his hands slick with blood. "You knew," he said, voice low and dangerous. "You followed them." Celine's lips trembled. "They meant to kill you. And you care why?" His eyes narrowed, studying her. "Do you fear losing me, or do you fear who takes my place?" Celine could not answer. She only knew one thing: her stepmother's web was tightening, and she was caught between a beast and a viper. Kyle stepped closer. So close, she could feel the heat of his body, the iron tang of blood clinging to him. His voice was a whisper now, deadly and intimate. "You've bought yourself a question, Celine," he said. "One truth, and I'll grant you an answer. Ask wisely." Her heart thundered. Her lips parted before she could stop herself. "Why me?" she whispered. "Out of all the women you could have chosen, why me?" Kale's golden eyes burned into hers. For a moment, the ruthless mask slipped, just enough for something raw, something unspoken, to flicker in their depths. Then he leaned close, his breath brushing her ear. "Because you're not what you pretend to be." And with that, he was gone, leaving her trembling in the shadows, the knights groaning at her feet, and the curse burning in her veins like fire. Celine barely slept. The memory of Cal's golden eyes, gleaming in the dark, haunted her long after she returned to her chambers. His words echoed like chains in her mind. "Because you're not what you pretend to be." She pressed trembling hands against her face, half expecting the mask of beauty to crumble in the night. But the curse held fast, as it always did. She woke as the court's flawless jewel, even as her skin beneath burned with the truth. By morning, whispers already slithered through the castle. 2 knights had been found bloodied in the halls. They would not speak of what happened, their tongues silenced by fear of Kale's wrath. But everyone knew, the Alpha King was not a man to cross. Celine sat in her chambers, her breakfast untouched, when the door slammed open. Kale filled the doorway like a storm, cloak trailing, boots striking hard against the floor. His golden eyes locked on her with the force of a predator who had cornered prey. "You knew," he said, voice low, dangerous. "You heard them, and you followed. Why?" Celine's fingers curled into her gown. She forced herself to lift her chin. "Should I have let them kill you?" His smirk was humorless. "Many would have." "I am not many," she snapped, though her voice trembled. Kale moved closer, every step deliberate, until the air between them hummed with tension. "No, you're not. And that is why I want the truth." Her pulse thundered. He was too close, too sharp. She felt as if he might slice through the curse with his gaze alone. But before she could speak, the door creaked again. Queen Morwen entered, her face a mask of polished calm. But Celine knew better: the slight flare of her nostrils, the tightening at the corners of her mouth. Rage simmered beneath her skin. "Your Majesty," Morwen said smoothly, bowing her head to Kale. "I heard there was trouble in the night. How fortunate that you are unharmed." Kale's jaw flexed. "Fortunate, indeed." He glanced between Morwen and Celine, golden eyes sharp. "Though I find fortune often favors those who already know the game being played." Morwen's smile never wavered. "Surely you don't suggest we had anything to do with this. My knights are loyal." "Your knights are cowards," Kale said flatly. "And liars. They tried to gut me in the dark." The silence stretched, heavy and brittle. Celine held her breath, watching her stepmother's mask hold steady. Finally, Morwen turned to her. "Celine, child, why do you look so pale? Did last night frighten you?" Celine's nails dug into her palms. This was the leash tightening, the reminder that she belonged to her stepmother's schemes. But Kale stepped closer, his arm brushing Celine's as he stood beside her, his presence a shield and a claim all at once. If she is pale, it is because your wolves prowl too close. Perhaps you should leash them tighter. For the first time, Morwen's smile cracked. Just for a heartbeat, her eyes hardened, ice-cold and venomous. But then she inclined her head. As you say, Alpha, I will see to it. She swept from the room, her gown whispering against the stone, leaving the scent of smoke and bitter perfume in her wake. The moment the door shut, Celine exhaled shakily. Kale turned to her, his voice low, roughened with something she could not name. You're caught in her web, that much I see. But tell me this, Celine. His hand lifted, not touching, just hovering near her cheek as though daring the illusion to crack. When will you stop pretending? Celine's heart hammered, her curse burning under his gaze. She wanted to scream the truth, that she was no jewel, no goddess, only scars and shadows hidden by magic. But she swallowed the words, forcing them back into the dark where they belonged, and whispered instead, when it is safe. Kale's smirk returned, sharp and dangerous. Then I'll make it safe. The castle was alive with frenzy. Maids scurried with armfuls of silks, seamstresses pricked their fingers raw on wedding gowns, and the kitchens bellowed with the roar of fires preparing a feast to rival kings. The betrothal ceremony would be held in 3 days, an event that would bind Celine to Kale before the eyes of gods and men, and she had never felt more trapped. Celine sat rigid as pins jabbed into her gown, the seamstress fussing over every pleat. Hold still, my lady, the woman murmured. The Alpha King will want perfection. Perfection. The word struck like a blade. For wasn't that what her curse gave them? The illusion of flawless beauty, while her true reflection withered beneath. Her vision blurred. The mirror before her wavered, just for a heartbeat, and she saw it. A scar, ugly and jagged, stretched across her jaw. Her breath hitched, and she blinked it away, only for the flawless face to return. Milady? The seamstress asked, frowning. Are you unwell? Celine forced a breath. I'm fine, but she was not. The curse was weakening. She could feel it, hairline fractures spreading through the illusion like cracks in glass. Kyle, meanwhile, stalked the lower halls with the fury of a storm contained. His men, warriors from Blackthorn, had arrived the night before, grim-faced, scarred, sworn to him with blood oaths. Together, they hunted the truth. The 2 knights who had attacked him were found dead in their cells, throats slit, silenced. Kale spat, fury etched into every line of his face. Your queen teased up her mess quickly. His captain, a broad man with one eye, growled. Do we strike now, Alpha? Kale shook his head. Not yet. Let the serpent think herself safe. When I cut off her head, I want the whole court watching. That evening, Celine walked the candlelit corridors, her skirts brushing the stone. She tried to quiet her thoughts, to push away the vision of scars in the mirror, but her mind swirled with dread. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with Kale. Do you always haunt these halls? She snapped, her heart racing. Do you always wander them alone? His eyes flicked to the shadows around them, sharp and unyielding. Foolish. If I were not me, you'd already be dead. She bristled. Perhaps that would be kinder. Kale stilled, his golden gaze piercing her. Do not speak of death so lightly, Celine. It has a way of listening. She turned from him, but his hand shot out, catching her wrist not cruelly, but firmly, as though anchoring her to the moment. Something is wrong with you, he said. I see it in your eyes. What are you hiding? Celine's throat tightened. The curse, the scars, the truth you would despise. But she could not say it. Instead, she pulled free, her voice sharp. You see too much, Alpha, and yet, not enough. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the tension between them humming like a bowstring pulled taut. Then Kale's lips curved, dangerous and amused. Good, keep your secrets, but know this: when the glass shatters, I will be the one to see what lies beneath. Celine's breath caught, for in her chest, the curse pulsed like a living thing, cracks spreading wider. And for the first time, she feared that Kale Draven might be the one ruthless enough to break it. The great hall of Ashbourne glittered with gold and candlelight. Nobles in velvet and furs crowded the chamber, their whispers rising like a tide as the Alpha King strode to the dais. Kale Draven was a dark sun in their midst, every eye drawn to his ruthless presence. He wore no crown, no gilded armor, only black leather and the wolf sigil at his chest. It was enough. The hall bent around him, and at his side, Selene. Her gown shimmered like liquid moonlight, every stitch meant to exalt her as the jewel of Ashbourne. Her curse held barely. She felt it straining beneath her skin, flickering like a flame about to gut her out. One wrong word, one slip, and the whole court would see the truth. At the dais, Morwen watched with serpent's eyes, her smile sharp as a blade. The High Seer raised his staff, the air heavy with incense. We gather to bind Alpha Kyle of Blackthorn and Lady Selene of Ashbourne. An oath of blood and fate, witnessed by gods and men. Selene's knees nearly buckled. This was real. If she spoke the vow, she would be bound to Kale forever. Kale turned to her, offering his hand. Golden eyes burned into hers, unyielding. Say the words, little wolf, he murmured, voice low enough for only her to hear. Bind yourself to me. Her throat locked. She could feel the curse writhing, desperate to break, to reveal the scars beneath her illusion. She closed her eyes, willing herself not to tremble. But then, a scream split the hall. The heavy doors burst open. A man staggered inside, his chest soaked in blood, an Ashbourne guard clutching a dagger in his heart. He fell to the floor, choking on his last breath. Panic erupted. Kale moved instantly, shoving Selene behind him, his dagger flashing free. His men, stationed along the walls, surged forward. Traitors! One bellowed, seizing nobles who tried to flee. Selene's heart hammered. Morwen rose from her throne, feigning horror. Guards, protect the court! But Selene saw it, the flicker of satisfaction in her stepmother's eyes. This chaos was hers. Kale's gaze cut to Morwen, sharp as a blade. For the first time, the hall saw the wolf beneath his skin, golden eyes blazing with fury. This is your doing, Queen, he growled. Your rot seeps through every wall of this castle. Gasps filled the chamber. Selene clutched her skirts, torn between fear and defiance. If Kale struck Morwen down here, war would ignite before dawn. If she stayed silent, Morwen's trap would tighten until both kingdoms bled. Her lips parted, and the curse faltered. For a heartbeat, her reflection shattered. A scar flashed across her cheek, raw and ugly, before the illusion snapped back. Kale's head whipped toward her, golden eyes widening, not in disgust, but in recognition. He had seen. And Selene knew, with bone-deep dread, that there was no turning back. The hall dissolved into chaos. Screams, steel, the stench of blood. Nobles fled like frightened birds, courtiers pressed against the walls, and guards struggled to restore order. Kale stood unmoving in the storm, golden eyes fixed on Selene. He had seen it. The scar, the truth she had buried. And Selene could not breathe. Morwen swept down the dais, her voice sharp, commanding. Clear the hall! Escort the nobles to safety! Lady Selene, with me! But Kale moved first. He seized Selene's wrist, his grip unyielding, dragging her from the dais. She comes with me. The queen's smile did not falter, but her eyes gleamed with venom. She is my ward, Alpha. You forget yourself. Kale's lip curled. I forget nothing. He pulled Selene against his side, his voice a growl that silenced the hall. She is mine by oath, and I will have answers tonight. Before Morwen could protest, Kale swept Selene from the chamber, his warriors closing around them like a shield. The guest wing was quiet, torches burning low. Kale pushed Selene inside his chamber, the heavy door slamming shut behind them. For a long moment, he said nothing. He only looked at her, his golden gaze burning through the illusion of her curse. Selene's skin prickled as if stripped bare. Finally, he spoke, low and lethal. What are you hiding from me, Selene? Her throat tightened. You imagine things. His laugh was sharp, humorless. Do I? Then tell me why. In a hall full of nobles, your perfect little mask slipped. Tell me why I saw scars that vanished like smoke. Selene flinched, turning away. The curse clawed at her veins, tightening like a noose. If she spoke, the truth would shatter her. If she lied, Kale would never stop hunting it. Kale moved closer, his presence filling the room. He caught her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. Do you think me blind? Do you think I would not smell a lie on your tongue? You hide something, something rotten, something cursed. Her lips trembled. And if I am cursed? For a heartbeat, silence. Then Kale leaned closer, his voice a whisper of steel and smoke. Then I will break the curse myself. Celine's breath hitched. She wanted to laugh, to weep, to scream. He did not understand her curse was not a chain easily severed. It was a living prison, a mirror with fangs. Leave it, she whispered, desperate. Please, Kale, for both our sakes. But his hand only tightened, his golden eyes fierce. No, I will not leave it. You are mine. Celine and I will know every truth you bury. His words struck deep, not just with threat, but with something more dangerous. Possession, obsession, and the faintest echo of promise. Her heart pounded. For the first time, Celine feared not only her curse, but what might happen if Kale truly broke it. The corridor outside Kale's chambers was silent, but Celine felt it all the same, the presence of her stepmother, cold and unyielding as steel. Morwen's footsteps were quiet, but every echo was a whip across her nerves. Celine! The hiss of her stepmother's voice made her blood run cold. She spun, heart hammering. Morwen stood in the shadows, a pale smile stretching across her face. You're safe, for now, Morwen said, voice soft and dangerous. But do not think the Alpha King's protection can last forever. Celine swallowed, trembling. You won't harm me. Oh, child, Morwen murmured, tilting her head. I have harmed you every day of your life. This is nothing. I merely remind you of the truth. You belong to me until your curse consumes you, or until he breaks you. Celine's pulse quickened. She wanted to strike, to run, to scream, but Morwen's presence pressed her back like a tide. You think he understands? Morwen continued, stepping closer, the scent of her perfume sharp as iron. He does not. He sees an illusion, a shadow. But the moment the truth comes, he will recoil. He is ruthless, yes, but not foolishly kind. And you are weak. Celine's lips parted. You're wrong. I am not weak. Morwen's laugh was a knife. Ah, the mask speaks again. Keep it up. The court loves a jewel, Celine, but the wolf, he will see the cracks. And when he does, he will bite. A shiver ran down Celine's spine. Morwen's words were more than threat, they were prophecy. And she feared them more than Kale's golden eyes, more than the shadow of the curse. Before Celine could respond, Kale's voice cut through the corridor like a blade. Leave her. Morwen froze. Kale stepped into the torchlight, black cloak swirling around him, golden eyes blazing. Or do you need me to remind you why none in this castle can harm her without my say? Morwen's smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. Alpha King, she murmured, retreating a step. You overstep. Kale's presence did not waver. I overstep for her life, and I will overstep for her truth. Do not mistake my patience for weakness. Morwen's eyes narrowed, but she melted back into the shadows. The serpent waits, Alpha, and the serpent never forgets. When she was gone, Kale turned to Celine, close enough now that she could feel the heat of him, hear the rhythm of his heartbeat. Are you unharmed? He asked, low, dangerous, yet with something careful behind his words. Celine nodded, though her hands shook. I am unharmed. He studied her, as though weighing every syllable, every breath, every heartbeat. Then his lips curved, sharp and knowing. You lie, he murmured. Her throat went dry. No, Kale stepped closer, his hand brushing her arm, grounding her in a way that was terrifyingly intimate. You do not need to lie to me, Celine. I will find the truth, anyway. And when I do, his voice dropped to a whisper, close to her ear, rough and burning. You will not run. Celine's breath caught. She wanted to shrink from him, to push him away, but some part of her, a wild, terrified, longing part, shivered in his presence. For the first time, she understood. The wolf was not just outside to protect her. He had claimed her, and no serpent in the world could undo that. The moon hung low over Ashbourne Castle, pale and cold. Celine paced her chambers, hands pressed against the cool glass of her window. Every moment since the betrothal feast had been a storm of whispers, threats, and eyes that seemed to see past her carefully constructed mask. And now, the mask itself was faltering. In the mirror, Her reflection shimmered like water disturbed. For the briefest heartbeat, the illusion cracked, revealing the jagged scars across her cheek, the uneven curve of her jaw, the imperfection she had spent years hiding. She blinked, and the flawless image returned, but the memory of the truth burned in her mind like fire. Her chest tightened. If Kale had seen even a fraction of it during the chaos of the feast, he must know. Yet he had said nothing, his golden gaze heavy with some secret thought she could not name. A soft knock broke her reverie. "Enter," she called, voice barely above a whisper. Kale stepped inside, cloak brushing the floor, boots silent on the stone. Even in the dim light, he looked dangerous and impossibly alive, every movement precise, predatory. "Do you ever sleep?" she asked, attempting levity, but the words sounded hollow. "Not when there's danger," he replied, eyes sweeping the room, landing finally on her. "And sometimes, I think I cannot sleep when you are near." Celine's stomach twisted. His words were heavy with intent, layered with something she did not yet understand. "Danger?" she echoed. Kael's gaze sharpened. "Yes, your stepmother's whispers, her plots, the nights she sends. And now, this curse of yours." Celine froze. "You know? Enough to be certain," he said, stepping closer. "I saw it, Celine, during the feast, that brief flash, the truth beneath the mask." Her hands shook. "And what did you think?" Kael's golden eyes softened, not completely, not yet, but enough to terrify her. "That you are more real than any jewel, any illusion, and that I will protect that truth, even if it burns the world around us." Celine's heart pounded. The curse throbbed beneath her skin, reacting to the intensity in his gaze, flickering wildly. "It wants to break, and I am powerless to stop it." Then, a distant sound, a soft creak from the corridor made them both turn. Kael's hand shot to his dagger, stance fluid, lethal. "We are not alone," he growled. Celine felt her pulse hammer in her throat. "Morwen?" Kael's lips curved faintly, but not in humor. "She is always near. But this is something different." Before Celine could respond, Kael moved to the door, sweeping it open with a predator's precision. A shadow darted past the torchlight, a servant, yes, but clutching a folded note, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Kael snatched it, scanning the words in a heartbeat. His eyes narrowed. "Traitors, more of them. Your stepmother is planning something bigger, Celine, and it begins tonight." Celine's breath caught. "Tonight?" Kael's jaw tightened. "We prepare. And you?" His gaze burned into hers, searing and intimate. "You will not hide. The mask, the curse, whatever lies beneath, I will see it, and you will stand by me." Celine's pulse thundered. Fear, dread, and something unfamiliar twisted together desire, perhaps, or terror, or both. She had never been so exposed. And yet, she could not pull away from the intensity in his gaze. The curse flared again, sharp and hot beneath her skin, and she knew, with terrible certainty, that the cracks were only beginning. Tonight, nothing would remain hidden. The castle slept uneasily. Shadows stretched long across the stone halls, and the silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional creak of wood or the distant howl of wolves beyond the walls. Celine couldn't sleep. She sat at the edge of her bed, hands twisted in the sheets, her mind a storm of Kael's words. "You will not hide. Whatever lies beneath, I will see it." The curse pulsed hot beneath her skin, aching like a wound that would not close. In the mirror across the chamber, her reflection wavered again, flawless for one breath, scarred the next. She tore her gaze away, heart hammering. Then she heard it, a scrape against the window. Soft, deliberate. Her blood froze. Before she could move, the shutters burst open, and a figure cloaked in black swung inside, blade gleaming in the moonlight. Celine screamed. But the assassin never reached her. Kael was there, as if summoned by her fear. He burst through the door, golden eyes blazing, dagger already in hand. With a snarl that was more wolf than man, he intercepted the strike, steel clashing against steel in a shower of sparks. The assassin staggered back, but two more figures poured in behind him, blades drawn. Celine stumbled, heart thundering. The room erupted into chaos. Kael moving like a storm, his strikes brutal, efficient. One attacker fell, blood spilling across the floor. The second lunged at Celine. and she froze until Kale's arm swept around her, pulling her flush against him as his dagger sank into the man's throat. The curse flared violently at his touch, heat racing through her veins. Her reflection in the shattered mirror screamed back at her, scarred, ruined, broken, for a heartbeat. Kale could see it too. And he did not let go. The last assassin fell beneath his blade, collapsing at Celine's feet. The chamber reeked of blood, the silence deafening after the violence. Kale's chest heaved, his arms still locked around her. His voice was low, dangerous. "Assassins! In your chamber! This is your stepmother's doing." Celine trembled. "She will not stop." "No," Kale growled, pulling her closer, his heat searing through her fear. "But neither will I." She looked up at him then, and the curse cracked wide open. The illusion faltered, scars searing into view across her cheek, raw and terrible. She gasped, hands flying to her face. "Don't look at me!" She choked, voice breaking. But Kale caught her wrists, forcing her hands down. His golden eyes burned into hers not with disgust, but with something fierce, unshakable. "I will look," he said, voice rough, almost savage. "I will see every scar, every shadow, and still, you are mine." Celine's breath caught, her chest aching with something she could not name. Terror, hope, desire. The curse pulsed, straining as though it might shatter completely under the weight of his words. And for the first time, she wondered if Kale Draven, the ruthless Alpha King, might be the only one powerful enough to destroy it. Blood still stained the floor when dawn broke. The servants who dared enter Kale's chamber gasped at the carnage, whispering behind trembling hands. "Assassins in the night, Lady Celine nearly slain, and the Alpha King unyielding, unbroken, emerging from it like a predator fresh from the hunt." Word spread like wildfire through the castle. By the time the council gathered in the Great Hall, the story had grown teeth. Some said the assassins were mercenaries from Blackthorn, meant to shame Ashbourne. Others claimed it was Kale himself, testing Celine's loyalty. But those whispers choked and died when Kale strode into the chamber, golden eyes blazing. Celine followed, pale but steady, her scars hidden once more by the curse's faltering grip. Yet Kale's hand never left her back, a silent claim in front of all. He stopped at the center of the hall, his voice cutting through the air like thunder. "Last night," he said, 3 assassins entered Lady Celine's chambers. They sought her life, and mine. They failed. Gasps echoed through the nobles. Morwen rose from her throne, her face a mask of horror. "This is unthinkable! Who would dare such an outrage under my roof?" Kale's gaze locked on her, sharp as a blade. "Your roof shelters serpents, Queen, and I will not suffer another strike." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Morwen's smile was brittle. "You accuse me?" "I accuse the shadows you breed," Kale growled. "Whether by your hand or your courts, the blood spilled is yours to answer for." The Queen's eyes flashed, but she bowed her head ever so slightly, feigning submission. "We will investigate, of course." Kale's voice rose, filling the chamber with iron. "No, I will investigate. My warriors patrol these halls now. Any who lift blade or whisper against Celine will meet the same fate as the cowards who bled in her chamber." The hall fell silent, the weight of his threat crushing every tongue. Celine's heart pounded. She should have felt safer, but instead, she felt the walls closing in. Kale had just declared war, not only on Morwen but on Ashbourne itself. When the hall emptied, she turned to him, voice sharp with fear. "Do you know what you've done? You've turned this kingdom against you, against me." Kyle faced her, unyielding. "Let them turn. Let them bare their teeth. I will break them as I break all enemies. But you..." His hand brushed her cheek, and for a moment she felt the curse flicker, fighting his touch. "You! I will not lose." Celine trembled. "You saw the scars. You know what I am. And still..." "Still," he interrupted, voice low, dangerous, and startlingly raw. "I choose you." The words struck her harder than any threat Morwen had whispered. For Kale Draven did not speak in softness. He spoke in vows. And vows from the Alpha King were unbreakable. Celine turned away, heart in chaos. The curse burned in her veins, fighting to maintain its mask. But beneath it, she felt something shifting, unraveling. As if Kale's vow had struck not only her heart, but the curse itself. And far above them, in the shadowed balcony, Morwen watched with eyes of cold fire. Her lips curved into a smile sharp as a dagger. Let him vow, she whispered to herself, for vows can be broken, and when his breaks, I will watch her shatter.